you think everybody needs a personal brand?
I think everyone has one, whether they like it or not.
10.5 million eyeballs.
She seems cool. Like, she seems real.
What got you started?
The reaction legitimately blew me away. I was shocked. They're gonna think I'm so cheesy.
How did you push past that?
I have this thing, and it's called delusional confidence.
Take us through the emotions of pressing publish for the very first time.
Like, stop trying to be everything to everyone and just be something to someone. And it totally flopped. I am a seller's seller. I ride so hard for my sellers.
Feels like you're talking to me.
This is my closet. First day I put them out, like, it was normal engagement. And then I put the next one out, and I put the next one out. And just the whole thing went bananas.
Break it all down for us.
You will never have perfect content, ever. My advice there is, like...
All right, welcome back to Differentiate, where we have conversations with some amazing people who are building really cool things and the stories behind them. Today is all about the power of personal branding. Our guest is an absolute LinkedIn powerhouse, an enterprise seller, a mindset leader, and a rising star in personal branding. With more than 10.5 million impressions on LinkedIn this year alone, she's showing everybody what it means to make an impact in a digital world. Today, we're going to unpack it all. Her journey, her frameworks for finding her voice, why LinkedIn is evolving faster than ever, and what it takes to turn those impressions into actual impact. We'll also be breaking down her highest performing post of the year, giving you an insight into what made it go so viral and what she would change today if she was to do it again. So if you're trying to build a brand, scale your influence, or really just try to figure out what the heck you post next, this episode is for you. Now for our interview with Nikki Lang. Nikki Lang, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I am so excited for this. I think personal branding is one of those things that has exploded in importance, or at least the perception of importance, over the last decade. So I want to start with this. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I would love to know, you've gotten in front of 10.5 million eyeballs on LinkedIn this year alone, specifically over the last 5 months. And when you show up on somebody's page, maybe this is the first time that they've ever seen you or experienced your brand or the things that you talk about. And they're thinking to themselves, who is this woman? What does she do? Why should I care? What is the first thing that you hope comes to mind?
Man, what a good question. First, I hope they're like, she seems cool. Like, she seems real. Okay, this is a person that I might want to hang out with one day because my real, true personality is coming through. What I don't want them to think is like, oh, great, another buttoned up LinkedIn influencer trying to teach me or sell me something. That's like the opposite reaction I want people to have. So whether it's, one of my kind of unhinged, funny posts, which I do consider myself funny, or one of my more thoughtful, deep, insightful posts, I just want them to be able to connect with me in some real way.
I love it. I love it. And before we really get into everything, I think let's set the foundation real quick, because everything that we're going to talk about today is about personal branding. But personal branding is one of those terms that I feel like has maybe lost its meaning because it's been thrown around so much in so many different ways. When you think about personal branding, what does personal branding mean to you?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot recently. And I think that personal branding to me is how people feel when they think about you or when they see you or when they interact with you. I think it's the feeling that they get. It's more of like an internal reaction because you can put up a really polished profile and colors and logo, but if it feels stale and people feel like it is contrived, then you're not creating the brand or reaction that you're going for. So I think it's more of a feeling.
Yeah. So more as a feeling. Do you think everybody needs a personal brand?
I think everyone has one, whether they like it or not. Right? So you're constantly putting out information into the world, into the internet that's going to be evergreen, whether you like it or not, especially on LinkedIn, when your real name and your real company is associated with every comment that you make. And I do think that some people can overthink that, and it kind of freezes them up a little bit and makes them more hesitant to let their true selves, shine. But we are all creating a personal brand for ourselves. And so I think the more intention you can put behind it and thoughtfulness, you can only benefit from that. So it's not something that I think everyone needs to create a job or a side hustle around. But I do think that it's something that everyone should at least give some thought and ask themselves, how am I showing up in this space? And am I showing up in a way that I would be proud of?
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think there's any difference in a personal brand and a reputation?
I think that man, again, that's such a good question. So I think a reputation is like what other people say about you when you're not in the room. I think a personal brand is more so what we are, the messaging that we are intentionally putting out into the world. So I think a reputation is much more reactive, and a personal brand is much more, again, intentional. But I do think I'm not quite sure exactly where that delineation occurs between the two. I think if you have done a good job or a successful job in building a personal brand, hopefully there's alignment between your personal brand and your reputation. If there's misalignment, that's probably something that you should look at. Maybe you're not showing up as authentically as you think you are. And so there's a incongruency there between how you think about yourself and how you think you're showing up and how other people are perceiving you.
So you said that you've been posting for about 5 months, and I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of Nikki 5 months ago. You're sitting there probably not expecting that you're getting ready to embark on this journey that's going to have such an impact on people's lives. You probably weren't saying, I'm getting ready to start a brand that's going to reach millions of people. So in that moment, what got you started?
Yeah, so I've been selling for a long time. I've been a seller for over a decade. And I started having these epiphanies, if you will, kind of these deep internal thoughts around my profession and how I wanted to really approach my day-to-day job to improve my own mental health around selling, because the pressure can really get to us in sales after 10 years of selling. So I started incorporating mindfulness practices into my daily life in order to help me show up as a better seller, because the pressure was really getting to me. And it started to totally change my experience and had a significant impact on my quality of life, but also my ease of closing deals. And I was like, I should probably start writing about this, because I know that other sellers are struggling. I know that other sellers are feeling the pressure. It's a really, really tough environment to be selling in right now. And so I was like, I'm just going to start sharing my own personal story, my own personal journey that I'm currently going through. And the reaction legitimately blew me away. I was shocked. Like I never, ever thought that it was going to get the reaction that it was. People started calling me, emailing me, DMing me, and so I was really encouraged early on to keep sharing because of the positive feedback that I was getting and how it was resonating with people. And so I just kept sharing, and it's kind of just turned into what it is now.
Do you have any idea what that first post was?
Oh, man, I could definitely go back and look, but I know it was around mindset. I know it was around, like, my core messaging in the beginning was always around like mindfulness and sales, but I have to go back and look. It probably only got like 27 likes or something, I was like, damn,
And I think that is so interesting, because when people get an idea of who they think you are, they get really comfortable with that idea. They can essentially put you in a box. Nikki is this type of person. This is what I can expect from them. And they get comfortable with that idea. And when you start to expand or push outside that box, people get very, very uncomfortable. For you, take us through the emotions of pressing publish for the very first time.
Yeah. So of course, there's always this like little feeling inside your chest that's like, what did I just do? I don't feel that so much anymore. Sometimes I do still feel that when I hit publish, but I always just let it ride. I like look at that feeling and I just sit in it. And I'm like, man, why are you so uncomfy right now? So there definitely was that uncomfortable feeling in the beginning. It's something funny about LinkedIn is like nobody that I know in my personal life is on LinkedIn. Like, of course, my coworkers were on LinkedIn. So those were the people that I actually thought about the most were my coworkers. Like, they're going to think I'm so cheesy. And like my coworkers at the time, they thought I was cheesy. And like, they told me, but at the same time, like maybe just a few months later, they started asking me how I was doing it and what they should be posting about. Right. So I have this philosophy of like, if people are judging you in what you're doing in your life, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with how much they judge themselves in that same situation, right? Or how much they would be afraid of being judged. So other people's perception of me is honestly none of my business. And I try not to even think about it or focus on it because I cannot control it and I will never even know. I will never know what people think about me ever. So like, what is the point in even trying to guess what all of these strangers think about me?
So at the time when your coworkers are saying these things, that is cheesy, maybe that it's never going to work, what are you doing? Did that ever get to you? Did it ever bother you? How did you push past that?
No, it didn't bother me. I have this thing that I refer to a lot, and it's called delusional confidence. It has served me well in my sales career. And I just think that like, I refuse to betray myself and start thinking less of myself or doubting myself based on other people's opinions. Like I hold my relationship with myself and how I think about myself and how I respect myself to a very high standard. And I'm not going to allow, and sometimes it's easier than others. And I have to really question myself and like check myself because I'll find myself going down this path. But I'm not going to allow other people's thoughts, feelings, and own insecurities create insecurities in me. Like I don't agree to that. So I understand that what I do makes other people uncomfortable because they would never be comfortable doing it themselves. That does not mean that I should stop doing what I'm doing.
I completely agree. And I think that transitions really, really well into something that you posted about recently. And that is your 2025 mantra. Do it all with joy. When you start to build, when you start to create something new, when you get traction, things start speeding up really, really quickly. How do you remind yourself to stay grounded and remain joyful when things really do start to get overwhelming?
So I'm coming off, it's Friday afternoon while we're recording this right now, and I'm coming off one of the most stressful weeks of my life. I'm not joking, my life. It was an incredibly busy, stressful week. We're opening up a brick and mortar business in our local community. I just started a new position not too long ago. I'm getting out of my last position. There's just big transitions going on in my life. And all while I'm the mother of two small children. And, I did have like a little mini breakdown in the middle of the week. I'm not going to lie. But one of the reasons why I love posting on LinkedIn is because of the accountability factor, right? I put it out there into the world. I said, I am going to do it all, but I'm going to do it all with joy, right? And I have this little beautiful cohort of like people around me who I lean on in those moments. And one of them reminded me, he was like, Nikki, we're going to do it all with joy, right? Like in that moment of overwhelm, my support system reminds me what I agreed to with myself, right? So sometimes we do need that reminder, whether it is like coming from a stranger, coming from our partner, coming from our friends. Because when you're in the moment, like I have these moments of clarity where a lot of times I try to write in those moments of clarity or like, those epiphany moments. But I don't live there all the time, right? Like I'm not just like walking around like some enlightened guru. Like, no, I have to say these things because I need the reminding, right? I'm a crazy seller, just like the rest of us. So, by putting it out there on LinkedIn, you are kind of making this statement to the universe and to yourself that I'm going to agree to this. And so when you do that, if you can't remind yourself, other people will remind you.
So you talk about this really tight knit internal support system, your friends, your family, people that are close to you. But I think what is really interesting about your story and what you're starting to build is that you've created a really, really tight knit external community as well. And this is all the people you're talking to. You have started to deem yourself as the mother of BDRs. And I'm curious, when you first start out, it feels like almost, that nobody's listening. You're yelling into this void. You're yelling into this black hole and into this ether of nothingness, that nobody's out there. Yeah. Nobody's listening to what I'm saying. So for you, how did you choose an audience, and how does that shape the stories that you tell?
Yeah. So I always say I am a seller's seller. Like, I am for the sellers. Like, I ride so hard for my sellers. I'm so proud to be a seller, and like, I ride for my sellers. So like, for me, I was always posting for them because I knew that there was so much struggle and pain happening amongst my fellow sellers, in the space, because we were all getting laid off. We weren't hitting our numbers. And there's this very specific type of person that typically gets into sales, and it's like an overachieving perfectionist. And we do not do well with failure, right? So there's all these people that are falling short, to these numbers, and they're struggling. And so I initially showed up for them. And so I think that I started to kind of build that community, but then it grew, right? The Mother of BDRs thing, I've always just in my personal life for years have helped people break into tech because I think it's such a wonderful profession to get into. So that was like a very natural sort of progression. I was currently helping multiple people get jobs when I started posting. So that just kind of happened naturally. And I think that aspiring BDRs, they gravitate towards my content because they want to one day be, a decade into sales like I am. So it's aspirational for them, and they take nuggets where they can. But I think like the audience just came, I was talking to myself. And so I think the audience came really naturally, people that resonate with where I am in my life and career. And I respond to every single person that comments on my content. And I got this from Dan Goodman. He says, if someone takes the time and care to comment on my content, I'm going to take the time and care to comment back. And, I think that's such a beautiful standard because I do love creating a genuine community with these people. Like, I have met so many incredible people through LinkedIn. Like, they're some of my closest friends now that I talk to the most are other creators on LinkedIn. Like, as crazy as that sounds. And I think it's because we all see so much of ourselves in each other, and we can really bounce things off of each other and in a way where like no one else in our life probably understands what the heck we're talking about. But the community aspect of it, like, there's nothing contrived there. Like, that is genuine friendship and connection. And that's the greatest gift that I've gotten from starting this whole thing.
I love that you said that you're talking to yourself years ago. I don't know if you know a gentleman by the name of Rory Vaden. He is the founder of Brand Builders Group. He helps some of the biggest celebrities in the world, like Lewis Howes, Ed Milet, Donald Miller with StoryBrand, get really, really clear on what they do and why they do what they do in one or two words. But he defines personal branding as the digitization of your reputation. And he also goes on to say that you are best positioned to serve the person that you once were. And for me, I immediately think back a decade ago when I started my career as a SDR with a SaaS company that was selling into behavioral health centers and correctional facilities. So picture sitting down at your desk, getting ready to make 50 cold calls for the day into a warden at a correctional institute. Not necessarily the dream job for everybody, right? But for me, I got really, really good at grabbing attention, holding attention, and telling a story that converts. It continues to be the foundation around what I'm doing today, the success that I've had, and the trajectory of my career going forward. So for you, when you think about grabbing attention, and holding attention. To me, those are two very different things. How do you think about that?
Man, I wish that I was that refined in my approach, that I had a really great answer to give you. I think so much of what I put out there is trial and error. Like so much of it is experimental, And so what I started all with written posts. I was only doing written posts. And then I did this one-off freaking video in my car because I had just received a cold call. And so I recorded my reaction to that cold call and I posted it and it went crazy. So then I'm like, okay, apparently I should be videoing more off the cuff, posting more off the cuff videos. And so I started doing that. And some of them worked and some of them didn't. And then I started doing series. And the series like freaking took off and like people loved the series. And I'm like doubling down on the series. And, I think like so many people overthink their strategy. So much of it is throwing spaghetti at the wall and just seeing what sticks. And so, and everything kind of has its value in a different way. I think video is incredibly efficient at getting impressions and getting to a wider audience. But I think like a really well-written post is key for engagement. Like I get some of the most engagement on my written posts. And so, I wish I had like this formula, but I think just I think consistency is more important than anything. Like they need to trust that you're going to continue to show up because they start to invest in you, right? Like people are like really interested in who I am now. So I have like a responsibility to keep showing up and showing them who I am, right? And so I think consistency is the biggest thing. And then you just kind of see what works and you keep iterating from there. And also the algorithm is constantly changing. So it's very hard to have a plan.
Totally. And one thing that I really respect and that I love about your content in particular is that it feels like you're talking to me.
Exactly.
It feels like you're shooting me a text that we've been friends forever. And it doesn't feel overly produced. It doesn't feel like you are miles away and what you're doing is unattainable. It feels like we're buddies.
Yeah.
And I really like that about your content. And I think that takes us into the next segment, which is all around platform strategy. Today you're on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Are you anywhere else?
So it's so funny. I'm on Instagram. I don't necessarily want your audience to go find me on Instagram because that content is very different than my LinkedIn content. Listen, it's public. It's a public profile. If you want to go find me, you can. But you're not going to find my LinkedIn content on my Instagram profile. So LinkedIn, like my audience is there. And one of the reasons why I started so strategically and intentionally with LinkedIn is because I was talking to my fellow sellers and I was already kind of connected and in that network and you can see where everyone works. And, I'm not just like putting content out to tell you like what I'm eating for dinner. Like I'm talking to sellers about their professional career and how to show up and, the meaning behind that. Instagram is just totally unhinged. I mean, that's just like my personal life. There's selfies on there that I would never post on LinkedIn. So like it's a very different persona over on Instagram. And it's so funny because I have tried posting a couple of my LinkedIn content over on Instagram and it falls so flat. Like no one hears it, sees it, understands it. I think I'm like speaking a foreign language to half the people. I don't even think half the people in my life know what I do for work. Honestly, so I do kind of create, and I don't know if this is the right thing to do or not. Like I'm not giving advice here. But I do create different content for the different platforms based on the audience that I have in those different spaces. Like Sarah Uwe has done an incredible job of building her TikTok following is bigger than her LinkedIn following. And she posts all of her LinkedIn content plus more kind of personal, like day in the life stuff over there. And it works really well for her.
Can you tell everybody who that is real quick?
Yeah. So Sarah is one of the most popular sales influencers on LinkedIn right now. She just went off on her own and started her own sales training company. She's doing amazing. And all of her videos get like incredible engagement. She's really at the top of her game right now on LinkedIn. And so she's cross-platform. And so I have thought about doing that, at least maybe with TikTok, but I don't know, like I enjoy LinkedIn so much. I don't feel the need to like cross post on all these different platforms. And that may be short-sighted of me, but as of right now, I'm all of my sales content is just on LinkedIn.
That makes sense. So take us through your non-negotiables, your posting schedule. You talked a lot about staying consistent.
Yep.
How about your fears about maybe being on camera? What are your non-negotiables when you are sitting down, continuing to build your brand?
So the funny thing, I've never been afraid to be in front of a camera. I love being in front of a camera. You'll see if you do find me on Instagram, I post stories all day long and it's just me talking to my phone all day long. And I realized a while ago that most people don't do this. Like, just talk to their phone and post it on stories, but I always have. And I just assume that people like care about what I'm doing, what I'm talking about. So the fear of getting in front of the camera, I feel very natural and easy talking to my phone, which I think is very hard for a lot of people. My advice there is like, just do it and delete it if you don't like it, or send it to one person and be like, hey, how does this look or feel to you? But just like the practice makes that easier. But my system is I try and show up once a day, at least once a day on LinkedIn. As of right now, I am not overthinking my content calendar. I have three main pillars. I have like my day in the life as a seller, and I'm going to start doing a lot more of that as I go into a new position. I'm going to kind of bring in the audience into my onboarding experience, my ramping experience. I want everyone to, like, full transparency, know how I perform this year. Like, I have big goals. Am I going to hit them or not? Like, let's find out together. Who knows, right? I think that'll be really interesting to people, like bring people in behind the scenes. So that's one of my big pillars. Second one is going to be my mindset and sales content. So it's always going to be around how to stay just mentally healthy in this game of sales, and remember that life is so much bigger than our quota and that we are so much more important than our work performance, and just keeping that perspective so that we can survive in this profession long term. And then number three is going to be my Deal Doctor series, where I'm going to be analyzing deals and like going deeper into deals and dissecting deals, because I think it's so much fun and people have really, really resonated with that. So those are my three big pillars for 2025. And I'll just create content around those three things and try and post every day, a mix of both video and written content.
I've really liked following along with your Netflix style content, the bingeable watch one, watch six type of series. Why did you decide to make that shift from singular posts to series-based content?
Yeah, I don't know. You know how, like, I don't know if the idea was mine or I saw someone else do it and then I was like, that's a good idea, I should try it. I honestly don't know. But one day I was like, oh, I should do the 5 Sales Superpowers series. And like every day it's a different superpower. I don't know where the idea came from, probably just a mix of so many places. But it was, again, totally experimental. I had never done a series before. And so, you know why I really think I did it? Because I wanted to film them all in one day and be done creating content for the week, right? So like batch film and then have my whole plan for the week was like knocked out. So it made the content creation piece a lot easier. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, let's like just put it out and see if it works. And it's so funny because for that series in particular, the first day I put them out, like it was normal engagement, like a couple of thousand, maybe like 4,000, impressions the first day. And then I put the next one out and I put the next one out. And like on day 3, it's like LinkedIn realized that this was a series somehow, and just the whole thing went bananas. Like all 5 videos got over like 100 to 500,000 views, like every single one. And they all took off on day 2. It was so interesting to me. I'm like, okay, this works. And then I posted about how it works and like showing people the metrics. And I think people are very interested in that piece of it too. Like they want to know I'm very big in like lifting the fourth wall, right? Like showing you like the behind the scenes, because like, I don't like to gatekeep. We're all doing this together. We're all figuring this out together. So I showed people the results, and then like that one got a ton of impressions and views. And so I don't know, I just realized, oh wait, there's something to this. And people started to associate me with those series, like the Deal Doctor thing, or I don't know, the Sales Superpowers. Like these little like bite-sized nugget like titles and ideas tend to people latch onto them because it's something that they can quickly understand and kind of put in a bucket. And so I think that's probably one of the reasons why they perform well.
Yeah. So, two things that you mentioned. Number one, tips, tricks, ideas, all worthless.
Yeah.
It's about the execution, right? When you think about a first-time founders are all like, you're going to have to sign an NDA to get access to what we're building and get access to our IP. Second, third, fourth-time founders are all like, you can just have it because I know that you're not going to execute on it. It's going to take effort, it's going to take time, and it's going to take money. All three of these things that I know you're probably not going to go do. And I think for you, giving everything away for free is fantastic, but people still have to execute on it, right? And that's the execution layer that a lot of people miss. And then number two, the thing about consistency, and I do it too because I struggle with it. It's like it takes forever to get everything set up. You got to get your microphone set up. You got to get your lights set up. And you said that you sit down and you record multiple sessions at once. And I do the same thing. I am a Henley hoodie and hat guy. Over in the corner where you can't see right now, I have a stack of hoodies and a stack of Henleys. So when I get my lights set up, I get my camera rolling, I'll record a 30-second snippet. I'll change shirts. I'll take off the black. I'll put on a blue. I'll record another 30 seconds. I'll take off the blue. I'll put on a gray and I'll go again. Because I think what's really important is you get yourself in this flow state where your brain is really starting to produce some really valuable ideas, and you don't want to lose that. And you don't want to be at the mercy of your equipment. You don't want to be at the mercy of where you are at that time. So sit down and batch your content. And it's all about being in that flow.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to break that flow when you're in it. It's funny that you mentioned the Henley shirt thing, because at the end of the 5 Sales Superpowers series, someone mentioned like in the last video, I revealed that I filmed it all in one day, and someone commented like, oh, I thought you only had one outfit, because I didn't change my clothes, so I was like literally in the same outfit for all 5 videos. But I also think that that lends to the congruency of the series. It's like, and I'm always in front of my same like black door background. That even becomes a part of my brand, right? Like people associate my surroundings. I'm always either wearing like my glasses and a black cap or like some sort of like jacket. So I think even like we don't have to, some people think like, oh, like variety, I have to change up everything, like my environment, I got to keep it interesting. I think people will start to associate these things with your brand, and there's some sort of like comfort that comes along with that. So like, don't feel that pressure to have to put, a new spin on everything that you're doing, because then it can be confusing for people and kind of where to place you.
That is so interesting, because we talked about the comfortability of people becoming comfortable with who they think you are. And then when you begin to create, they have to form this new idea of who Nikki is, who this person is. Am I comfortable with this? Am I not? There's this gentleman on TikTok, and he creates everything in his car. And he put out a poll to his audience, and he said, hey, I'm thinking about opening a studio. Would you guys still follow along if I left the truck and I moved everything to a studio? There's about 45% of his audience that said that they would discontinue watching if he left the truck. So for you, people are now starting to get comfortable with who you are. The black jacket, the glasses, the black door, but should you go left or should you go right? It may make people uncomfortable. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. I mean, I am definitely going to try new content this year. I want to do more like get out of my closet, because this is my closet. For you guys that don't know, I live in my closet, and kind of bring the people along a little bit more in my outside life, and try some of these like narrating formats. I think one of the reasons why I haven't done that yet is because it's hard. Like it's a lot of editing. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of cutting and splicing. And Something about me is like, it has to be easy and simple or I won't do it. So one of the reasons why I do all talking head videos is because of the simplicity and ease of it. So I literally plot and a lot of people have asked me about how I edit and my setup. So I'm going to go through that right now because it's so simple. I literally take my phone, I prop it up on my computer, I hit record. I have a light behind my computer, so I have great lighting. And I literally record myself talking to my phone for, 2 minutes. I go into TikTok to edit it because it has the easiest editor that I have found. I edit any pauses or, like the millennial pause at the beginning or any or whatever. And I put it to music and I put on some captions and that's it. And the whole process takes me about probably 20 to 30 minutes. And I usually like to go with my first take because it feels the most authentic to me. Like the more I rehearse, the more contrived it starts to feel. And if I feel myself getting like, ugh, I have this like visceral internal reaction if things feel fake. That's why like I cannot physically show up fake because I like get the ick. So if things start to feel too contrived or like I'm trying too hard or this is too like boxed in, I'll literally like stop and I'll try again in like an hour or two.
Okay, so listen, anybody that loves Nikki, loves what she's doing, you can do this too. Put your phone up, hit record, and just practice. If you hate it, if it sucks, delete it. Your first few are gonna suck. You gotta get comfortable getting in front of the camera, getting in front of the microphone, finding your style, finding your personality. And that's okay. I always stress to people that are always starting out, it does not need to be perfect. Mm-hmm. It's not gonna be perfect. But you starting is the first step to getting better. You can't get better unless you start. And the beautiful thing about starting is that nobody else has to see it. You press record, it sucks, you delete it, you try again. And so, Nikki, I know today you're doing a lot of things on your mobile phone. It's really simple. You're editing through TikTok, which I absolutely love. But how do you think about the barriers to entry when it comes to editing and packaging and getting it ready for your audience?
So one of my goals for 2025 is to continue getting better at editing because I keep it so simple now. But the main takeaway and point I want to make is that it doesn't have to be fancy or complicated. I think so many times people overcomplicate things as a way to create a barrier to entry for themselves because they're actually just scared to do it. So I would rather people just do it and put out something low quality than do nothing at all and overthink, how do I make this perfect? That saying like perfect is the enemy of good is like, it's so true when it comes to content. You will never have perfect content ever, ever. And you will never have content that everyone likes. And you will never be for everyone. But if there's a couple of people that resonate with you and see a little bit of themselves in you or what they're trying to become, it has value. So like stop trying to be everything to everyone and just be something to someone.
1,000,000%. I totally agree. So before we break down Nikki's top performing posts of the year, I have one more question. There are a lot of people out there that say that impressions don't matter unless they turn into sales. What do you say to those people?
Well, first of all, I am making sales. I get offers in my inbox all the time for different opportunities. If you show up on LinkedIn consistently, it will result in some sort of revenue generating opportunity. I guarantee you that. And it might not be what you think it will be, but it will be something. So, just whatever your goal is, just put the content out there. For me, my main goal right now is still just building. I want to build trust with my audience. I want to build credibility with my audience. Like right now, I'm doing everything for them, not for me. Eventually, yes, I will do it for me. So stay tuned for that. But for now, it's all about building. I just want to build the most warm and fuzzy, feel good community that exists out there on LinkedIn. because I know that they will ride hard for me when the time comes when I do want to go off and do my own thing. Right. So for right now, it's just all putting out value to build trust and credibility and community. However, I do have coaching clients, and that came about honestly by someone reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, do you do coaching?" And I was like, "Yeah," because I just say yes to everything. I have many people have come to ask me to speak to their sales team or to do sales training for their team. And this is without me advertising anything like that. I have done consulting jobs. So that's what I mean by just don't always do it for the end game in mind. Just do it for the sake of creating and connection. Like sometimes we have to do things just for the sake of the experience and not be so, end game focused. So right now I'm just doing it for the building.
So real quick, before we get into your top performing post, people are starting to reach out to you and say, "Hey, do you coach? Do you consult?" And I have to assume you're like, "Yeah, I mean, I guess I do." But how do you think about pricing, packaging, and creating an offer of value for your customer?
Oh my God. That is the hardest, that's been the hardest thing for me. And that is where my community of my little cohort of creators comes in handy. So I seriously have this group chat with like 6 other creators that are all a little bit ahead of me. I have the least number of followers in this group. They're all at different points of their career. And it's so valuable, this group. So I literally am like, guys, someone just asked me if I do this. Do I do this? What do I charge? How do I package this? What would you do? Right. And everyone kind of gives their input. And then you take from that what you will, and you put something out there that you're comfortable with. But I think that's where community is so, so valuable. You ask people that have done it before and you build off of that. It's as simple as that.
I love it. All right, let's have some fun. Speaking of results, I want to take a few minutes and go really, really deep on your most successful post of the year, a mini masterclass of sorts. This right here was your most successful post of the year. Let's break it down.
Okay, so I just got cold called and I answered it and I gave him enough time to pitch me. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, why? Why did I give him enough time? Why didn't I just immediately cut him off? And the reason is like he came off super just human and natural when he called me. He was like, "Hey, saw that we went to the same college and we have some mutual connections on LinkedIn. Just wanted to give you a call and like see whatever." Super natural. I pulled up his LinkedIn profile while we were on a call, while he was on the call, could see who he worked for, what he was selling. I don't know. We didn't book a meeting because I don't need his services right now, but I gave him enough time to introduce himself and tell me what he does and give me his pitch. And the reason why is because he stayed human. Like he just came across as a person calling another person. It did not sound rehearsed. It didn't sound scripted. It sounded very natural. And that's why I gave him the time of day. So maybe cold calling isn't dead, but I'm telling you guys, stay human. Like that is the key to breaking through these days. Just be a person calling a person. And that might sound super simple, but it is harder than it sounds. So that is my cold calling tip for the day.
Can you break it all down for us?
You guys, I wish there was like a better framework around this. This is the one that I recorded in my car because I literally received a cold call in my car. I took it and then I had a thought and I was like, ooh, I have this reaction to getting a cold call. I'm going to share it because everyone has opinions around cold calling and what makes a good cold call, right? Such a hot topic. So I literally recorded myself in my car on my phone with the reaction that I was having to this cold call and why I think that cold call worked. And I posted it and it went bananas. And it was really interesting because the reason why I think that it worked was I do think it was a pattern interrupt because of like how I was showing up. Like I was wearing sunglasses. I'm like in my tank top because I'd just gone to the gym. I'm in my car. So I think like the visual of it was a pattern interrupt for LinkedIn, like almost the casualness of it, because everyone is so buttoned up on LinkedIn. Like me just kind of showing up in my like post gym self was that you talk about capturing the attention, right? And then I gave a strong opinion on something, on a very hot topic. And so I think that kept the attention and created some of that engagement where people kind of gave their opinion on why they think that it worked or it didn't work, or, agreed with me or disagreed with me. But something that I want to point out here is that I would never consider this my most successful post. This was my most viral post, but I don't think it was my most successful post. The way that I gauge a successful post is by the engagement, and not just like clicking a like, but by starting conversations. And if you go into my comment sections now on some of my posts, like they are so crazy. Like the conversation, they'll go off on tangents here, like threads there. Like it creates this whole community of threads of people talking and so interactive. Like that is, to me, I'm like, man, that was a good post. Like look at all the conversations that this one post started. And then also, if I have a really good post, I do keep track of my follower count, whether that matters or not. And on a good day with a good post, I will gain between 1 and 200 followers in one day when a post really resonates with people. And I gauge that because that means that whatever I put out there, they viewed valuable enough to click the follow button. And that to me is like, okay, that resonated. That created interest. That created curiosity. They want to see more. And that is a signal to me that what I'm putting out there is resonating with those people in some way.
I absolutely love what I call one of one content. Anybody out there can post the top 5 ways to do X, Y, and Z, right? But not everybody can say, based off of my decade of experience, here is my opinion of where this topic is going over the next 12 months.
That's why I think it's important when you do have an idea that pops into your head to make content out of it, to create. Whether you're going to do a written post or you do a hot take video, that little hypothesis or epiphany or hot take that you had is you. That is your thought process. That is your experience in life and your profession coming to fruition in an opinion. So that is what I think makes the best content, because it is more organic, if you want to use that overused word, right? That is like your true essence coming out in that moment. When you sit down and you're like, what content am I going to create today? It's very hard to genuinely be inspired in those moments. That's usually when we turn to ChatGPT and we're like, hey, ChatGPT, what should I create today? And she's going to spit out some generic thing that feels so stale, so if you don't have your own perspective on it, that's where it loses its value. Your perspective as a human is where you have value. That's how you add value into your content, is your unique perspective. So if you try to vanilla, coat everything, you lose all of the value and the interest. So record those hot takes, write them down, write down those epiphanies, and we get them all the time if we pay attention to them.
I think the best tip you gave was just hit record.
Yeah.
Just take the idea, just get it down. Sometimes the most brilliant ideas come in some of the rawest moments. So I couldn't agree more. Just hit the red record button. I know it's intimidating, but again, going back to all the things that we talked about earlier in the show, if it sucks, you can delete it. Nobody has to see it. It doesn't have to exist. But it's all about repetition and getting those at-bats under your belt so that over time you get better, you get more comfortable, you start to hone in on your audience, and your message becomes much more clear. If you were to sit down and recreate this post today, what would you do differently?
It's funny, I tried to recreate it and it totally flopped.
Why? What do you think it was?
Because it was recreated. You can't recreate in the moment content. It's no longer in the moment, right? So I was in my car again I gave another hot take on cold calling. And I'm like, because I was like, oh, this did so well. Did it do so well because I was in my car? Did it do so well because I was talking about cold calling? Let me put those two things back together again and see. And no, it totally flopped. And it's because I was trying too hard, which is like such an annoying thing to say because it's like try, but not too hard. It's like, okay, what's the right level of try? And obviously, like, we're all trying. I have to try every day to show up to LinkedIn. It doesn't just happen by accident. I am trying. But, that's why it's such a delicate balance between being thoughtful and, having a plan and having a content calendar and also just allowing yourself to show up as yourself. And I have gotten offers for ghostwriters. I have gotten offers for people to manage my content and manage my content calendar and organize my content for me. And I have said no. Like that creative control, I think will never leave me because that is what allows me to show up in the moment as myself. Like I can't think about what I'm going to want to post in 2 weeks. I don't know how I'm going to feel in 2 weeks or what I'm going to care about in 2 weeks or what I'm going to want to talk about in 2 weeks. Right. So like that makes it a little bit harder because I have to, less planning makes more like in the moment work for me. But that is what keeps it feeling fresh for me. And as soon as it starts feeling stale, I am no longer interested.
So I hear you say that you don't know how you're going to feel in 2 weeks. And I feel the exact same way. So this may be a contradictory question in itself. But when you look to 2025, Nikki, what is next for you?
No, so I do have my pillars, right? And I think that my 3 pillars help keep me focused because Lord knows I can be all over the place. But I allow myself creative freedom within those lanes, right? So if I want to go outside, color outside the lines, I'm going to allow that to happen. 2025 is all about building for me, for my family. I mean, we're building all over the place in this household right now. But I did just start a new job. So I have big goals at my new gig. I'm selling enterprise. It's somewhere new that I will be announcing soon, probably before this post. So I could probably just say it, but I'm not going to. So you got to go check out my profile to see where I work now. But I'm going to really be focusing on just success, professional success, and continuing to grow my community. Those are my two big things for 2025. And my husband and I are launching a local business. So launching a business, being successful at work, and building my LinkedIn community. So super chill, low key, nothing major.
That's too good. So for somebody listening that is inspired by your journey and they say, hey, I want to be just like Nikki, what's the first step that they take?
Stop trying to be like somebody else and just be so you. Be all of you. Be all of you. Show up as all of you. And don't apologize for a second.
All right. Where can people follow along with you? Where can they connect with you? Where can they follow along with your journey?
Yeah. So for the sales content, it's all on LinkedIn, Nikki Lang. You can find me there. If you want like behind the scenes, weird, unhinged personal life stuff, you can find me on Instagram also under Nikki Lang. Actually, my Instagram handle is Nikki Flicky because that's my nickname. So yeah. But that's it. I'm easy to find, and I hope you guys do find me and connect and start a conversation. I accept all connection requests, which is probably a mistake, but I do. So happy to chat and DM and keep the conversation going.
That is so exciting. I am more than inspired. I hope for anybody out there that is still listening to this conversation has been able to take at least one piece of advice that will allow you to go start to build your own personal brand in 2025. Set the phone up, hit record. You can definitely do it. Nikki, thank you so much for being on. I'm Chris. This is Differentiated. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it.